news today. Due to the highly unlikely event of me actually getting a real job rather than solely relying on self-employment, I will no longer have time to produce crafting, sewing, e-bike, or other physical effort-related videos. From here on out, it'll be completely in newscast format covering TTRPG subjects, primarily the world-building lore we've been working on thus far. This is what you get. Hopefully you like it. So far, we've covered rough world building. We've done a fair amount on building a goblin culture. We've touched twice on kobolds and did a little bit on halfling construction methods. We've given our goblins a language of their own, and I can find a way to post a copy of it somewhere if anybody asks, if anybody wants it. But what language would best represent our kobolds? According to the... if my mouth worked, this would be easy. According to the game's canon, kobolds speak the draconic language. So we're talking about a language that would suit all of draconic kind, no matter what size they are. Kobolds speak with a particularly high-pitched voice and a specific accent, as it is described. Given that it sounds so different from when larger creatures speak it, the kobold accent has been called yip-yak, as though it were a separate language altogether. So what real-world language would sound ancient, regal, and powerful in a deep, resonant voice, but not so much in a perhaps gravelly, higher pitch with a different accent? My mind leans towards Latin. Maybe the accent or pronunciation is slightly different between various draconic kinds. Perhaps the larger, great, powerful dragons use ecclesiastical Latin and would say vidi, vimi, vici, where a kobold would use classical Latin and pronounce it weedi, weemi, wiki. Using the older version of the language, as well as having extremely high-pitched voices, might make it unintelligible for those who've only ever heard the language from the mouths of much larger creatures. Now with Latin in the mix, a propensity for hoarding wealth, and those in power doing their best to remain in power for as long as possible, I liken a Kobold Matriarch to the historic Renaissance papacy, the Medici, the Borgia, the Theophylacti, and the Saeculum Obscurum, for those of you who know a little about Catholic history, the darker side of it in any case. A bit of blending between the Roman Empire and the Renaissance equivalent to a mafia. This is not to say that any kobold matriarch might be less than an amazing leader with the best intentions and her people's best interests in mind and at heart, but crossing her, offending her, or harming any of her children. That might lead down a very dark path. It is extremely possible for a good and noble leader to use very dark means to reach an intended goal efficiently, perhaps without the general populace ever even knowing that these things happen. As for title, let's use the Latin again. Not just Regina as the queen of her people, but Imperatrix, being given the name Empress by her children. In kobold warrens, as shown on maps, there is almost always a throne room, as it is called, where treasure is stored. It's assumed by most that this is just where the kobolds worship their founding father and chief god, Kurtlemak, where they offer all of their hoarded wealth and magic to him. This might be partly correct. Partly. It would certainly be the most likely place for such venerations to occur and where such offerings would best be most safely stored. But someone actually sits on that throne, oversees those offerings, and ministers to those giving such venerations. Remember that a kobold warren raises their family, their children, communally. They're all one family. And their leader, Imperatrix, the Empress, Avia Familias, the grandmother of the family. For as long as she lives, that title remains hers. When she finally passes on, there will always be the next in line to carry on leading the family forward. The hoarding of gold, jewels, and magic items among the kobolds might also be misunderstood. Magic is, of course, offered up to their god. But the average kobold quite often wears and carries much more gold than outsiders might realize. Being such excellent miners and diggers, they have tons of the stuff. It might not even have significant value to them beyond the metal's ability to hold magical energies, or as decoration and jewelry. Outsiders seem to prize the stuff much more than kobolds themselves do. The larger dragons crave it, so showing it off might show their worth to other draconic races, allowing them to be taken a little more seriously when they interact. Kobolds are inherently communal in most of their internal dealings. A great deal of the hoarded wealth occurs because so many have more gold than they can sensibly wear. So they give their excess to the hoard. And any less fortunate kobold is always free to take some such pretty things for themselves if they wish. The only other common jewelry that kobolds wear are necklaces of their own teeth. These constantly regrow and replace themselves annually. Most kobolds will keep the biggest one of their shed teeth every year, creating a necklace that shows their age to all other kobolds who see it. Our matriarch, our empress, will of course be the oldest living female in the warren. But no one rules alone. She would likely have both personal guards and an elder council. Perhaps the next few in line to her throne would act as advisors, aiding in the wisdom of her decisions. It's entirely possible that these counselors might covet the power of the throne, or believe themselves much more capable of leadership than the current empress, or even the next few in line ahead of them. Maybe this is why the empress has personal guards. Perhaps when a reigning empress is in her final years of life, closing on 120, there's some jockeying for position among the counselors, clearing the path for whoever the most ambitious among them might be. If she's a few years younger, she might enjoy a few years more on the throne. Maybe she can entice or coerce some conspirators among the youth to aid in her plan, giving rumors of expanding the territory, opening new tunnels, allowing more eggs to be hatched, or even embarking on new industries or utilizing and experimenting with new tools and technologies. The thing is, there might be more than just one such ambitious elder among the council. There might always be a few such aspiring monarchs whose plans might interfere with one another until one eventually gains the throne. Then she'll have the power and have to forever watch her back and travel under care of personal guards. Imagine how many different campaigns, how many different scenarios you can run, all from different points of view, just with those last few descriptions. How much fun would that be? I am still looking for an artist, so I can put some images in these videos. If anyone's interested, I'd be more than happy to have the help. Now that I'm at least a little more gainfully employed, I might be able to pay something. As always, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Check out my other videos. Let me know what you want to see, and I'll do what I can to make it happen. Okay? Talk to you next time.